Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Before you listen, here is what I learned the hard way. Betrayal rarely starts with a dramatic moment. It starts with small boundary erosion that you excuse because you're tired, far away, and trying to be the dependable one. In my case, the red flags were not just missed calls. It was the way plans stopped including me, how urgency replaced affection, and how another person's help became a doorway into my home. The most important lesson was this: love cannot survive where clarity is avoided. If you cannot name the line, someone else will cross it and call it normal. I did not tell Simone I was coming home early. 3 months on a Coast Guard cutter in the Gulf had trained my body to sleep in bursts and my mind to stay ready. I wanted a quiet surprise, not a grand entrance. I pictured her barefoot on the tile, laughing at my secrecy, teasing me for being dramatic. My duffel still smelled like salt and engine grease. I carried it like proof that I had done the hard part for us. In the cab from Seattle to Tacoma, I rehearsed her reaction the way some men rehearse proposals. I'm a black man who believed home would be simple again. Tacoma greeted me with cold rain and wet asphalt glare. When the driver turned into our neighborhood in Hilltop, the streetlights made the puddles look like thin mirrors. Our duplex sat behind a short fence, porch light on, flower pots lined up like Simone's tiny soldiers. Then I saw the side gate standing open. Simone treated that latch like a vow. She once woke me at 2 in the morning because she felt uncertain about it. Seeing it open felt like a sentence missing its period. I paid the driver and stepped out slowly. The neighborhood sounded normal, distant traffic, a dog barking, yet my chest tightened anyway. That realization stayed with me all day. 2 suitcases sat by the front steps, not mine. One was a hardshell case with airline stickers and a tag that read Malcolm B. The other was a canvas duffel, newer than anything in our closet. A men's peacoat lay folded across the top, hangers still hooked through the collar. I stood there listening. From inside came Simone's voice, low and clipped, and a man's voice answering, relaxed, as if the house belonged to him. A microwave beeped. The normal sound made the scene feel more unreal. I swallowed hard and stepped closer. I kept that thought in my pocket afterward. If you have ever ignored a small red flag because you wanted peace, pause here. Watch closely what happens next, because the next choice is where most people lose themselves. I eased the door open just enough to see the entryway. Warm air carried Simone's vanilla lotion and a cedar cologne I did not recognize. In the dining area, Simone sat at the table with a folder open, pen moving fast, hair pulled back tight. A man stood near our bookcase, adjusting a scarf in the mirror we bought at a thrift store. He was tall, neat, and familiar in a way my stomach did not like. When he turned, I knew him. Malcolm Briggs, Simone's college boyfriend, the one she described as ambitious with a careful smile. It felt like a warning written in ordinary light. Simone looked up and saw me. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, as if she was sorting options. "Darius," she said, and my name sounded like a warning. "You are early. No welcome, no relief." Malcolm's mouth lifted into a small, polite smile. I set my duffel down and kept my hands visible, an old habit from drills. "I got rotated back," I said. "I wanted to surprise you." Simone's gaze flicked toward the suitcases, then back to me. "We were just leaving," she whispered too quickly. The words landed like a door closing from the inside. I stayed still, listening. Malcolm offered his hand. "Good to finally meet you," he said, the way a manager greets a customer. I did not take it. Simone's fingers clenched around the pen until her knuckles blanched. "What is this?" I asked, voice steadier than my chest. Simone closed the folder softly. "It is complicated," she said. Malcolm exhaled like he was tired of waiting. "Let us keep it respectful," he added. Respectful. The word felt like a demand for my silence. I pulled out the chair across from them and sat. I did not say it aloud, but I understood. Simone kept her eyes on the tabletop, tracing a faint scratch in the wood. "Malcolm and I knew each other before you," she said. "We reconnected." Malcolm sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched, and she did not shift away, even though she hated crowding in every other setting. He offered help, she continued, voice measured. I stared at the folder, seeing headings I did not recognize. Help with what? I asked. Malcolm answered for her. With stability, he said. With planning. Simone's jaw tightened as if the words tasted bitter. I wished I could unsee it, but I could not. My mind jumped back to the night I accepted the assignment. Simone had made a spreadsheet and pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a crab. She tapped her nails in a quick rhythm when she was anxious. 3 months, she said. We catch up on bills, we rebuild savings, then you come back on shore. I promised I would call every night. I promised the distance would not change us. I kissed her forehead and watched her force a smile. Even then, I felt a small unease, like I had left a window unlatched. I told myself to breathe and keep listening. On the cutter, the engines hummed through my bones. Night watches stretched into a kind of floating time, and the ocean looked like a dark sheet pulled tight. At first, Simone answered on the first ring. Then the calls shifted, third ring, then voicemail, then a text hours later about bad reception. When I asked about her mother's therapy, she replied, "She is fine," and changed topics. When I asked about work, she said, "Busy," and sent a selfie that felt staged. I told myself trust meant not keeping score. Still, I began counting days like a child waiting for summer. I noticed the smallest details more than ever. Now Simone slid a document toward me. My name appeared beside words like refinance, beneficiary, power of attorney. My throat tightened. Why is this in our house? I asked. Simone's eyes were wet but controlled. Because I cannot keep waiting, she said. I cannot live like a widow in training. The phrase hit hard. Malcolm leaned back, ankle on knee, as if he had rehearsed this room. She needed presence, he said, not just deposits. Heat rose in my face. I was on duty, I said. For us. Simone flinched at the word us. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Chief Harlan. Call me ASAP. I stepped into the hallway and called. His voice was low. A cutter in our sector had a collision, he said. Families heard rumors before the official list. Your name got mentioned by mistake. My knees loosened. I pictured Simone hearing my name next to collision and deciding the story was already finished. I returned to the dining table with my hands cold. Simone watched me like she could read the call on my face. Malcolm watched me like he could read my limits. I carried the moment carefully like glass. You thought I was dead, I said quietly. Simone looked down. She did not deny it. Silence answered me more clearly than any confession. Malcolm cleared his throat. She was terrified, he said. Do not punish her for fear. I laughed once dry. Fear does not draft paperwork to transfer control, I said. Simone's shoulders rose and fell. I did not know what to do, she whispered. Malcolm did. Malcolm leaned forward, voice smooth. I gave her options, he said, like this was a financial consultation. I let the silence speak, and it did. I looked again at the suitcases by the door. Are you moving in? I asked. Simone answered too fast. No, Malcolm answered slower. We are leaving, he said, emphasizing the word as if it proved decency. Leaving where? I asked. Simone rubbed her wedding ring with her thumb, a habit she had when she lied about small things like calories and bigger things like feelings. Spokane, she said. My sister. She never visited her sister without announcing it weeks ahead. Malcolm's eyes flicked toward the folder, then to the door, calculating. I tried to stay steady, even then. During deployment, I set bank alerts on our joint account, a decision that embarrassed me at first. Now I opened the notifications and scrolled. Charges appeared that were not ours. A men's barbershop in Seattle, a steakhouse I had never visited, hotel deposits, a jeweler's receipt. Each line felt like a small slap. I felt shame rise, not because money mattered most, but because I had worked in brutal weather believing every sacrifice was shared. I looked up. How long? I asked. Simone's lips pressed tight. Since December, she said. Malcolm coughed, as if correcting her without words. Right then, I stood and walked to the shelf where my father's watchbox sat, tucked behind old books. Malcolm's gaze followed it. What about that? He asked. nodding toward it like he had already imagined claiming it. My pulse jumped. "Do not touch that," I said, and my tone startled even me. Simone's eyes widened. She hated raised voices, but it was not a raised voice. It was a boundary. Malcolm lifted his hands in mock innocence. "Relax," he said. "We are adults." Simone had used that word earlier too, like adulthood meant consequences could be negotiated away. I noticed the smallest details more than ever. I picked up my duffel again. "I'm not staying here tonight," I said. Relief flashed across Simone's face, quick and ugly, like she had been holding her breath waiting for me to disappear. Malcolm's shoulders loosened. "That is wise," he said. I nodded as if I agreed. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila envelope. I placed it on the table between them. "Before you go," I said, "read that." Simone frowned. Malcolm snatched it first, confident. His confidence lasted about 3 seconds, then his eyes changed. I wished I could unsee it, but I could not. The envelope held copies of the deed and trust paperwork my aunt insisted I keep current, plus a letter from the trust administrator. My father had protected the property with conditions. No transfer without mutual consent, and a fidelity and abandonment clause that returned control to the trust if the marriage was effectively deserted. I also included printed doorbell camera timestamps showing Malcolm arriving late and leaving early, carrying bags. I had not wanted to use them, but my unease on deployment had pushed me to prepare. I did not feel triumphant placing evidence on my own table. I felt tired. That realization stayed with me all day. Simone pushed the papers back like they burned. "So you were spying?" she said. Malcolm tried for defiance. "This is petty," he said, but his voice was thin. I kept my eyes on Simone. "The camera protects the property," I said. "You agreed to it after the break-ins." She blinked, caught by her own memory. "Darius, please," she said, and her voice finally sounded like my wife, not a strategist. Something softened in me, then hardened again. "I'm giving you a clean exit," I said. "No yelling, no drama. Take what is yours and go. No more negotiations tonight." Outside, the rain fell sharper. I crossed to the corner store awning, neon sign buzzing, and stood with my hands in my pockets. They would not stop shaking. I did not want revenge. I want a plan. I called my Aunt Janine because she spoke in calm sentences even when furious. She answered on the second ring. "You are home," she said. I told her what I saw, sticking to details. Janine inhaled slowly. "Do not go back inside," she said. "Do not argue. Come to me. We move on paper first, then on feelings." I agreed and drove over. I checked into a motel near the Tacoma Dome. Thin curtains, carpet that smelled faintly of bleach. I sat on the bed fully dressed, shoes on, because undressing felt too vulnerable. Simone called twice. I let it ring until the screen went dark. Around midnight, Malcolm texted, "We can talk like men." I stared at the message and felt a strange pity. Men who say that usually mean, "Let me keep what I took." I turned my phone over. In the morning, I walked to a diner with fogged windows and a radio playing soft gospel. The world tasted like coffee and consequence. I kept that thought in my pocket afterward. After breakfast, I went to Mr. Calloway's barber shop, not for a haircut, but because it was a place where men spoke plainly. Clippers buzzed. Sports news played low on a mounted television. Mr. Calloway looked at me in the mirror and knew something was wrong before I said a word. "You came home to trouble," he said, a statement, not a question. I nodded. He did not ask for gossip. He just said, "Do not let anger write your next chapter." It was simple advice, but it landed. Outside, Janine pulled up in her sedan, raincoat crisp, glasses speckled with drizzle. I tried to stay steady, even then. Janine drove us past the duplex without stopping. "Timing," she said, not emotion. At the courthouse, fluorescent lights flattened everyone's faces. We sat near a vending machine that sold stale crackers and humming sodas. Janine filled out forms in crisp handwriting and slid them to me for signatures. She explained each step: temporary protection for property access, notices to the trust administrator, a separation filing that kept everything documented. "We do not weaponize this," she said. "We enforce boundaries." Her phrasing mattered. I did not want Simone harmed. I wanted the line made visible. It felt like a warning written in ordinary light. 2 days later, the trust representative scheduled a supervised pickup for Simone's belongings. I stayed away, but I watched from down the block inside Janine's car because part of me needed closure without contact. A local officer stood nearby, posture calm, hands visible, voice low. Simone carried out boxes, clothes, photo albums, her grandmother's quilt, the stand mixer she loved. Malcolm arrived late, wearing sunglasses though the sky was gray, carrying the same canvas duffel I saw at the door. He avoided looking down the street. Simone did look once. Our eyes met across distance, and she looked older than I remembered. I noticed the smallest details more than ever. That night, Simone showed up at my motel. I heard the knock and froze, because a part of me still hoped for an apology that could rewind time. When I opened the door, she stood there in a wool coat, hair pulled tight, eyes swollen, holding a small tote bag like peace. 5 minutes, she said. Please. I stepped aside without inviting her, keeping distance. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. I did not plan for it to go this far, she said. Her voice cracked at the end, and the sound made my chest ache in a familiar way. I told myself to breathe and keep listening. Simone tried to explain it as loneliness, then as fear, then as practicality. Each explanation slid into the next like she was testing what might soften me. You stopped calling as much, she said, and my shame flared because I knew those weeks. Double watches, storm drills, exhaustion so thick it felt like fog inside my skull. I called when I could, I said. I sent money every month. I put my whole body into that work. Simone wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. I needed you here, she whispered. I heard the truth inside the sentence. She needed control more than commitment. I tried to stay steady, even then. She asked if we could delay the separation, just until things settle. The request sounded harmless, but I heard the pattern. Slow negotiation, tiny steps backward. No, I said, not because I hate you, because I cannot rebuild trust while sharing space with the person who dismantled it. Simone stared at the carpet. So that is it, she said, anger rising to cover grief. You choose paperwork over marriage. I kept my voice even. You chose Malcolm over marriage, I said. The words were not dramatic. They were summary. Her shoulders sagged as if the fight left her body. Then she stood and left without slamming the door. I wished I could unsee it, but I could not. In the following weeks, consequences arrived slowly, like tidewater filling a low place. I updated my emergency contact at work and felt my chest tighten when I removed Simone's name. I canceled the joint credit card, changed passwords, and moved direct deposits. Each task was boring and brutal because it made the end undeniable. At night, grief came in waves. I missed the version of Simone who corrected my posture when I washed dishes, who insisted on folding towels a certain way, who laughed at my terrible singing while I cooked. I did not miss the strategist at my dining table. I began learning the difference. I carried the moment carefully like glass. I accepted the onshore training role in Seattle. The pay cut scared me, but stability felt like oxygen. On the first day, HR handed me a form to update marital status. Seeing the word separated tightened my throat, even though I chose it. After work, I rode the light rail, letting the city pass by. A teenager argued softly with his friend about shoes. A nurse leaned her head on the window, eyes shut. Someone played a saxophone in the station corner, notes drifting through tunnel air. The world kept moving, and I learned to move with it. For now, a month after I returned, I saw Malcolm at a grocery store. He was scanning items at self-checkout with exaggerated patience, like he wanted credit for being calm. When he noticed me, he lifted his chin. We should clear the air, he said. His voice had lost its shine. I noticed details I would have missed before, a small tear in his sleeve, a crack in his phone screen. Consequences had found him too. The air is clear, I said. Malcolm's jaw tightened. You do not own her, he snapped, and it sounded like he was convincing himself. I never tried to, I said. I own my boundaries. That was all. I told myself to breathe and keep listening. Mediation was quiet. Simone and I sat at separate tables, a neutral room smelling like paper and disinfectant. She wore a plain sweater and kept her hair simple, no jewelry except a ring, which she still wore like a protest. The mediator asked routine questions about debts and assets. I answered in the steady voice I used on watch. Simone answered carefully, voice smaller than the woman who once ran our household budget with military precision. When the mediator mentioned the trust clause, Simone's eyes tightened in a quick flare of resentment. Not at Malcolm, not at herself, at me for surviving with paperwork. I did not argue. I let facts do what feelings could not. I tried to stay steady. Even then, on a Sunday in early spring, I went to a small black church in Seattle's Central District. I did not go for a miracle. I went because singing with other people reminds you that grief is not unique. The choir's harmonies filled the room like warm air. The pastor spoke about accountability without theatrics. Regret is not repaired, he said. Repair requires truth and time. The words fit my situation without pretending to solve it. After service, an older woman handed me a plate of pound cake and said, "Eat, baby." I smiled, surprised by how simple care can feel when it is not tangled with betrayal. It felt like a warning written in ordinary light. The final court date came on a quiet Tuesday. No drama, no raised voices, just signatures and routine questions. The judge asked if the marriage was irretrievably broken. I said yes. Simone said yes, her voice thin. When it was over, I expected relief. Instead, I felt a hollow click, like a latch closing on a door I would not reopen. Outside, the city sounded the same, but I moved differently through it. I drove without music and past the harbor road, where ships lined up like steel shadows against the water. For a moment, I considered stopping to watch them. Then I kept driving. Some chapters deserve respect, not revisiting. I kept that thought in my pocket afterward. In early summer, Simone sent one last message. "I'm moving to Boise with my cousin. I will not contact you after this. I wanted you to know." The words were plain, almost respectful. I stared at the screen, surprised by the absence of blame. I typed back, "Thank you for telling me. I hope you find steadiness." I did not add anything else. I made tea and listened to the kettle hiss, letting the mundane sound anchor me. Later, I visited my father's grave under tall fir trees. The air smelled like earth and rain, and the quiet did not feel empty. It felt earned, like a boundary made real. I did not say it aloud, but I understood. After the move message, I expected peace, but my mind kept replaying the first night back. The open gate, the suitcases, the way Simone said early. In therapy, I learned that my brain was trying to rewrite the moment into something I could control. My therapist, Dr. Patel, spoke slowly and hated shortcuts. She asked what I did not say out loud that night. I admitted I blamed myself for leaving, as if my duty created permission. She made me list my choices and Simone's choices separately, like columns on a ledger. The separation did not erase grief, but it stopped the self-blame from spreading into everything. I began sleeping through the night again, one ordinary hour at a time. I wished I could unsee it, but I could not. Janine helped in practical ways, but she also challenged my pride. When I tried to act unaffected, she raised an eyebrow and said, "Stoicism is not healing, nephew." She made me eat real meals, not vending machine snacks, and she insisted I sleep, even when I claimed I was fine. One Saturday, she took me to a community center fundraiser where elders played spades and teenagers sold cookies for a school band trip. Being surrounded by ordinary plans reminded me that survival is not heroic, it is repetitive. I listened to laughter, to small arguments, to announcements about next week's meeting, and I let the normalcy soothe the part of me that wanted to stay braced for impact. I tried to stay steady, even then. At work, I stopped telling people I was good. I started saying, "I am managing," which felt truer and less performative. My supervisor, Lieutenant Price, noticed the change and offered quiet accommodations, flexible hours for legal meetings, no overnight training for a while. I hated accepting help, but I accepted anyway. Pride is expensive. Some evenings, I drove to Ruston Way and watched the water. I did not romanticize it. I listened to seagulls and distant traffic and let my thoughts settle without chasing them. The shoreline smelled like salt and wetwood. I realized I had been living as if constant strain proved devotion. It did not. Calm, when earned, is its own proof. I carried the moment carefully like glass. When friends asked what happened, I practiced boundaries. I did not share screenshots or repeat Simone's words for entertainment. I said, "She left, and I am handling it," then changed the subject. A couple people pushed, hungry for drama. I learned to end conversations politely, without apology. That skill surprised me more than the legal paperwork. I believed love meant unlimited access. Now I understand love requires limits to stay healthy. The absence of gossip protected my dignity and, oddly, protected Simone too. I did not want revenge disguised as storytelling. Silence was not weakness. It was control today. One afternoon, I returned to the duplex for the trust walkthrough. Janine insisted I go, saying closure is a kind of maintenance. The rooms looked bare and brighter, sunlight showing scuffs I'd never noticed. In the kitchen, the crab magnet still clung to the fridge, holding nothing. I stood there remembering Simone's spreadsheets and her careful labeling of spice jars. I did not hate those memories. I simply placed them where they belonged, in the past. The trust agent spoke about sale timelines and repainting, and his voice was businesslike, not cruel. I realized the house was never the promise. The promise was how we treated each other inside it. That promise was gone. I tried to stay steady, even then. Malcolm tried one last time to contact me, this time through a mutual acquaintance from Simone's college circle. The message was indirect. He wanted to make things right and talk man-to-man. I refused without insulting him. I knew his pattern now. People like Malcolm do not apologize to heal you. They apologize to fix their own image. I was not interested in helping him feel decent. When the acquaintance pressed, I said, "I have already closed that door," and ended the call. It felt clean, like locking my car and checking the handle once, not 10 times. The boundary was mine to maintain. I did not need Malcolm's understanding to keep it in place. I noticed the smallest details more than ever. The hardest part was grief's timing of grief. It showed up in harmless places. A grocery aisle where Simone used to debate cereal brands, a bus stop where couples held hands, a rainy evening when I heard wind chimes somewhere and my throat tightened. I let those moments happen instead of fighting them. Dr. Patel called it allowing the wave. I called it surviving without numbing myself. Some nights I wrote brief notes in a notebook, not poems, just facts, what I felt, what triggered it, what I did next. The notes were plain, but they kept me honest. When I was tempted to rewrite the past into a fantasy, I read them and remembered the open gate. Denial is comfortable until it costs you. I kept that thought in my pocket afterward. Renee and I stayed friends longer than my ego expected. She was a librarian with a habit of tapping her ring against her mug when she was thinking. She disliked grand statements and preferred small agreements. We walked on weekends, talked about books, and never rushed into labels. When she asked about my marriage, she listened without flinching, then said, "I am sorry that happened, and I am glad you protected yourself." No advice, no judgment, just clarity. That clarity felt rare. It made me realize how often Simone and I had tested each other without naming it, like love was a quiz. Renee did not quiz me. She asked direct questions and accepted direct answers. I began trusting my own voice again. I wished I could unsee it, but I could not. The trust sold the duplex by late summer. Signing the final sale documents felt different from signing divorce papers. The divorce ended a relationship. The sale ended a place. I drove past the house one last time and saw fresh paint on the porch rail. A new family's shoes lined up neatly inside the window. The gate was closed. I sat in my car and took 3 slow breaths, acknowledging the sadness without letting it pull me backward. Then I drove away and did not circle the block. The urge to look back is sometimes just your mind checking for danger. I did not need to check anymore. The danger had already taught its lesson, and the lesson had already changed me. I carried the moment carefully like glass. In September, I attended a Coast Guard family picnic, the kind with folding tables, coolers, and kids running with sticky popsicles. I had dreaded it, expecting pity. Instead, people treated me normally, which was a quiet kindness. An older chief pulled me aside and said, You can love your work and still protect your home. Do not confuse sacrifice with safety. I nodded because the sentence captured my mistake. I had assumed my effort guaranteed loyalty. It did not. Effort is not a contract. It is a gift, and gifts can be mishandled. Later, I helped clean up trash bags and fold tables. Doing simple tasks with other people, without the weight of performing strength, felt like practice for a calmer life. I did not say it aloud, but I understood. Simone's mother sent me a short card near the holidays. Her handwriting was shaky, and the message was simple. She thanked me for the years I helped, and she apologized for her daughter's choices without making excuses. I stared at the card for a long time. It would have been easy to ignore it. Instead, I wrote back one sentence. I hope your recovery is steady. Sending that felt like closing a loop with grace, not reconciliation. I did not want Simone back, but I did not want bitterness either. Bitterness keeps you tethered to the person who hurt you. I wanted distance that did not turn into cruelty. The card went into a drawer with my other papers, not as a trophy, but as proof that accountability can exist even when love fails. It felt like a warning written in ordinary light. By winter, my triggers faded. Cedar cologne no longer made me nauseous. It just smelled like someone else's life. A microwave beep was simply a beep. Rain was rain, not a warning. I still remembered that night, but it no longer hijacked my day. Dr. Patel called that integration. I called it owning my mind again. On New Year's Day, I cooked breakfast for Janine and my mother, grits, eggs, toast, and we laughed when I oversalted the pan. The laughter felt clean, like a room aired out after smoke. I cannot change the past, but I could choose the season. If this story hits you, stay with me, because the closing lesson is the part people usually skip, and it is the exact reason this situation escalated the way it did. What stays with me is not Malcolm's smile or Simone's silence. It is how quickly grown-up conversations can become a cover for avoiding accountability. The consequence was not just divorce papers or a house changing hands. The real consequence was recognizing that I had been trained to endure hardship, but not trained to demand clarity at home. I learned to separate grief from bargaining. Grief is honest. Bargaining is where people try to keep benefits without responsibility. I still miss parts of the life I thought I had, but I do not miss the uncertainty. Boundaries did not make me hard. They made me accurate. And accuracy, in the aftermath of betrayal, is what lets you heal without rewriting yourself into the villain. The end.